Let me just expand upon what I was talking about with black prepping. Some people are saying that it doesn't really make a difference, and it does, practically speaking, because people are tribal, whether you like it or not. I'm not saying that people are all racist, of course not, but people prefer to stick with their own tribe. What I mean is, even though there's a lot more interracial marriages now, frankly, it's still quite small compared to the other phenomena. It's the overwhelming majority of people, the vast majority of people, marry within their own race. And even at the middle classes, and you see plenty of black men, poor black men with poor white women, but you don't really see a lot of people in the middle classes and upper classes really mixing up that much. So when you look at that, and when you look at the fact that people, even though most people claim to be Christians in this country, they don't worship with people who look different from them. Yes, we have some mixed churches now, but for the most part, blacks worship with blacks, and whites worship with whites. We're very segregated in that sense. And even when you look at the schools, there's still a great deal of segregation there. Even where we choose to live, a lot of times we don't really choose to live around one another. So people are tribal, and when there's times of crises, people revert back to that type of behavior. So essentially, if there is an emergency, the resources, the people you're going to be working with are people within your own community. So the social and the cultural elements in that community are very significant to you, especially if you belong to a group that represents only 12% of the population. If you were white and you're part of the nominal majority and the power majority, you would probably have more access to more preppers because you're part of a bigger group. But just being part of the black group, and again, race is a social construct. It's something that we create on our own. It's really just one species. But anyway, that's a whole other video there. This is a reality that we're going to have to deal with. So the trends in your own community are quite significant, especially if you belong to one of the smaller communities. And if there's not a lot of prepping going on there, that's going to put you at a disadvantage, especially if the percentage of the population that's prepping, that's even in the black community, is even smaller than the percentage of people prepping in the white community. Now overall, most people aren't prepping, so but you also have to look at it through a certain context. Do we have a smaller percentage of black people prepping? Now we do have some rural black folks, country black folks, who definitely know a thing or two about survival. And people in the urban areas prepping too. But I'm looking at the percentages. I'm not quite sure what the percentages are. I'm just going by my own percentage, by my own experience. And it doesn't really look all that encouraging. You look at cultural elements where the overwhelming majority of blacks seem to support this ideology in which the government could be the solution to problems. And this is sort of based in the Civil Rights Movement. Civil Rights Act, a lot of black people saw how the federal government was able to create social change or major change through legislation. Ever since, I think the overwhelming majority of blacks have supported an ideology that the government was going to be a solution to all of our major problems. Now, I'm not talking about all black people, I'm talking about maybe 90 to 95%. I'm judging this by not only voting patterns, although I don't think voting is really it's really all that significant anymore. But anyway, but my own experiences with people, it seems as though people think the government is going to be the solution in my community, I should say, if you want to say it's a community. Some other things I've noticed that are problematic is that it's very hard to really unite blacks for free enterprise. In my experience, in my areas, I've noticed that there's a lot of division among blacks. There's a lot of individuals who are quick to tear other black people down as soon as they get a little success. Again, I'm not talking about all black people. I'm just talking about some phenomena that I've seen. And that could be very problematic, especially if you already belong to a group that only represents 12% of the population, and you're trying to build up networks and groups. That could be another challenge there. Plus, you got to look at the fact that a large percentage of our male black population are in prison. So, even higher, a much higher percentage than whites. Now, you can argue that this system is biased in favor towards whites, and that there's some bias in the enforcement of law and in the creation of the law. And I would agree, there is a lot of bias there, but you can't blame everything on just the system and even on white people, because there's some problems with our own community that are often overlooked. A lot of our men don't even want to take care of their kids. You have what, 67% of the black families being headed by single moms? We know the statistics with single parent homes, and the kids, and the fact the kids are much more likely to drop out of school, much more likely to end up in prison. These are some serious problems, and it's contributing to a lot of this. And how does this relate to prepping? Well, if you have less people, less human resources available, it's definitely going to affect your ability to really form meaningful networks and groups. You know, ideology fits into this as well. If people are completely invested in the government and they look for the government to always be the solution, then, you know, it's going to affect your ability to survive. Obviously, there's plenty of white people with this mentality. There's phenomena like this happening in terms of single-parent homes in the white community, but frankly, it's more like 25% of those families, last time I checked. And the problem is much more significant in the black community. You really do need two parents at least to really be involved in raising a child realistically. Parent from different genders, that helps. You know, you need a male and female perspective. Even if you're talking about a gay couple, it's good to have somebody of another gender, maybe a brother or somebody of yours, involved in raising a kid. It really helps. It really helps to have a man in the home. So these are some things that people just overlooked. And frankly, when you come from a smaller group, it's more difficult to integrate into prepping groups of other groups. Simply put, you know, people, their behavior changes when there's a time of crisis, and even that. No, you just have to work a lot harder to integrate into white groups. Not that everybody's racist, but I'm just saying that this is just a reality with human beings in general. You know, a lot of it is just a simple location. You know, if you're located in an area where it's mostly black people, it's unrealistic for you to think you're going to get to some white preppers 50 miles away if there's a crisis. You know, you're going to have to use what you have. You're going to have to work with the people who are in your neighborhood, in your community. So that's what I've been thinking about.